The galaxy was a place of constant motion, filled with a variety of thriving species, advanced technologies, and peaceful coexistence. But now, silence spread like a shadow across the stars. No warnings, no signs, just the sudden and brutal arrival of the Terrorized Dominion. The Terrorized were not just another alien race. They were something much more terrifying. They were a cold, calculating species with advanced technology that had the ability to overwhelm any defense with ease. Their fleet arrived from the farthest reaches of space, seemingly out of nowhere and without warning. The first attack hit a peaceful planet at the edge of the galaxy. The inhabitants didn't even know what was coming. It happened so fast that none of their advanced detection systems had any chance of reacting. For days, the galaxy held its breath as reports came in. Other planets were being attacked in similar ways, each one swallowed up by the might of the Terrorized. The Dominion had cloaked their ships, making them invisible to any form of detection. The Terrorized didn't just conquer planets, they destroyed them. Entire civilizations were wiped out with no chance to retaliate. The galaxy, once a place of pride for its technological marvels and diverse cultures, now trembled under the shadow of the Terrorized. The idea of a powerful, unrelenting enemy who operated from the shadows was enough to create panic across the stars. And as this unstoppable alien force moved through the galaxy, Earth, too, came under threat. Humanity, for centuries, had been viewed as nothing more than an insignificant speck in the vast expanse of the universe. For years, humans had thought they were safe, isolated, and beyond the reach of any galactic conflict. But that sense of safety was about to be shattered in the most horrifying way possible. Earth's position in the universe was not as secure as it seemed. The Terrorized didn't care for the planet's history or the people that inhabited it. They cared only for domination, and Earth was next. Major Riley Bonner, a seasoned soldier known for his quick thinking and unyielding bravery, had no idea just how far humanity's isolation had clouded their judgment. The Terrorized Dominion was coming for Earth, and the time for peace was long over. Bonner stood in the command center, listening to the urgency of the voices around him. The news had just broken. Earth's defensive systems, advanced as they were already being overwhelmed. The planetary defense grid, once the pride of humanity, had been quickly torn apart by the Terrorized's unexpected speed and advanced cloaking technology. No one had expected this level of force. Bonner's mission was simple: find survivors, rescue whoever could be saved, and do everything he could to delay the inevitable. Earth had failed to prepare, and now it was up to its last few remaining soldiers to make a stand. He was one of the best, and that made him the one in charge of this mission. His heart raced, not just from the adrenaline of battle, but from the weight of humanity's survival hanging in the balance. But as Bonner moved toward his mission objective, something unusual happened. A strange signal pulsed through his communications device, one that wasn't recognized by any of the known systems. The signal was ancient, primal even. It was faint, almost like a whisper in the void. It wasn't like any of the standard distress signals he had encountered. This was something different, something old. He paused, unsure of what to make of it. Could it be a trap? Or something worse, a mistake? His mind raced as he considered the possibilities. His instincts told him to ignore it, to focus on the mission at hand. But another part of him, the part that had kept him alive through countless battles, urged him to investigate. The faint signal seemed like the only clue, the only potential lifeline in a universe full of threats. After a few moments of deliberation, Bonner decided to follow the signal. It was risky, yes, but it was a risk he was willing to take if it meant the chance for survival. As he traveled deeper into the heart of the military base, he felt the weight of the responsibility grow heavier on his shoulders. Humanity was on the brink of extinction, and it was up to him to find whatever this ancient signal was and unlock its secrets. The deeper Bonner delved into the facility, the more intense the feeling became. There was a strange hum in the air, and the ground beneath his boots seemed to tremble with something powerful, something long forgotten. Finally, after what seemed like hours, he found it, a hidden chamber deep beneath the Earth's surface. Inside was a large, sealed door, ancient but undamaged, as if it had never been touched in millennia. Bonner's heart skipped a beat as he realized what he had found. This wasn't just any facility. This was an ancient military base, left behind by humanity in an age long past. A time before the Victorith, before the rise of the galaxy's modern conflicts. This place had been abandoned, forgotten, yet it still held something that could turn the tide of war. Something so powerful, so dangerous, that it had been sealed away. The door opened with a hiss, revealing a massive chamber. And there, standing in the center of the room, were colossal figures. The Warbeasts. These were the legends of humanity's past, the terrifying biomechanical creatures designed for the ultimate warfare. They were not machines in the traditional sense. They were living, breathing entities, their massive forms fused with human intelligence and artificial enhancements. The Warbeasts were said to be humanity's greatest weapon, created to ensure dominance in space, capable of turning the tide of any battle. But why were they buried here? Why had they been hidden away? Bonner stood in awe, his breath catching in his throat. He had never seen anything like them. These creatures, these Warbeasts, were beyond anything the modern world had to offer. The technology was decades, perhaps centuries, ahead of anything humanity had ever developed. Yet they were dormant, waiting, lost to time. His mind raced with questions. Could these beasts still be used? Could they help save humanity from the Xerath threat? The decision weighed heavily on him. He knew that activating them could mean risking humanity's future, but at this point, what choice did they have? With Earth's defenses falling apart, he had to convince the leaders of humanity that this was their only hope. If the Warbeasts were still functional, they might be the only weapon capable of turning the tide. As Bonner activated the control systems, ancient technology whirred to life. The Warbeasts stirred, their massive forms shifting in the shadows, the first signs of life coming from their dormant bodies. A low rumble echoed through the chamber, signaling that something ancient and powerful was awakening. But the question still loomed. Could these Warbeasts be trusted? What kind of power lay within them? And most importantly, could humanity unlock the full potential of these ancient weapons in time to stop the alien menace? The clock was ticking, and Bonner knew that he was running out of time. The fate of Earth, and of the galaxy, depended on what happened next. As the Warbeasts began to stir, the mystery of humanity's forgotten past started to unfold. The audience, left with an anxious anticipation, couldn't help but wonder, can Earth awaken the Warbeasts in time? And if so, will they be enough to stop the destruction that the Xerath Dominion has already begun? In the darkness of the underground facility, Major Riley Bonner stood in front of the dormant Warbeasts. His fingers trembled as he scanned the control panel, wondering if he could truly awaken these ancient creatures. The massive forms of the Warbeasts towered over him, their immense, biomechanical bodies still and lifeless, yet there was something about them, something deep within their powerful frames, that made him believe they could still fight. Humanity had once used these weapons to dominate the stars. Could they be used again? The question gnawed at him. The answer would come soon, but first, a flashback to humanity's forgotten past would help him understand what the Warbeasts truly were. Flashback to humanity's past. Thousands of years ago, long before the Xerath Dominion's invasion, humanity had stood at the height of its power. Earth had once been the center of a vast, thriving empire that stretched across the stars. They were conquerors of the galaxy, building colonies on distant planets, forging alliances with other species, and developing technologies far ahead of their time. Humanity was no longer the underdog. They were a dominant force in the galaxy, and with this power came one of their greatest creations, the Warbeasts. These creatures were not like any other weapons known to the galaxy. The Warbeasts were alive. They were not simple machines built for combat. They were giant biomechanical beings, living machines crafted from the perfect union of advanced human technology and artificial intelligence. Each warbeast was a masterpiece, designed to be powered by the very emotions of the humans who control them. Their eye was more than just intelligence. It was a reflection of the human soul, an entity that could tap into the deepest wells of emotion, allowing the warbeasts to fight with the power of rage, love, sorrow, or any other feeling that might fuel them. The warbeasts had been humanity's ultimate weapon, used in a war that spanned entire star systems. With their towering figures and advanced weaponry, they were unstoppable forces, able to crush enemy fleets and defenses with ease. But humanity's rise came at a cost. As their empire grew, so did their enemies. Other species, fearful of humanity's power, began to unite against them. The warbeasts were turned on their own creators, no longer able to discern friend from foe. In the chaos that followed, the warbeasts were hidden away, their creators afraid of the devastation they might cause if they ever fell into the wrong hands. The ancient records tell of a time when the warbeasts were locked away beneath Earth's surface. The decision had been made to bury them, to keep them dormant and hidden from the galaxy. But the warbeasts were not forgotten. Their legacy lived on in secret, waiting for the day when they would be needed once again. As the flashback ended, Bonner was brought back to the present moment. He stared at the dormant warbeasts before him, understanding the weight of what they represented. Could humanity really awaken them? The galaxy had changed since those ancient days, but if these warbeasts were still functional, they could very well be humanity's last hope. Suspense and decision. Back on Earth, the decision to awaken the warbeasts was not an easy one. The Earth's Council, consisting of leaders and military commanders, was divided. The risks were enormous. If they activated the warbeasts and they failed, humanity could be wiped out before they even had a chance to fight. On the other hand, if they did nothing, the Gezereth would destroy Earth anyway. The council convened in a large dark room, the weight of the situation pressing down on everyone in the room. Bonner was there, standing before them, his face a mix of desperation and resolve. He had seen the destruction that Gezereth had already caused. Entire human colonies had been wiped off the map in just days. That Gezereth's cloaked battle fleets made it nearly impossible to track their movements. They could attack any planet, anywhere, without warning. Earth was next. "We don't have time," Bonner argued, his voice steady but urgent. "We need the warbeasts. If we don't act now, Earth will fall." But the council was unsure. "We don't know what activating them will do." One of the senior officials spoke. "We're dealing with ancient technology, far beyond our understanding. We cannot risk unleashing something we can't control." Bonner's heart pounded in his chest. He had always known that this moment might come, but the stakes had never been higher. Every minute counted. That Gezereth had launched another assault, this time on a major human colony located near the outer rim of the galaxy. Bonner knew that if they didn't act now, Earth's defenses would crumble. "We don't have a choice," Bonner pressed. "If we wait any longer, the warbeasts might be our only chance. We need to awaken them. It's the only weapon we have left that can stand up to the Gezereth." The debate continued, but Bonner could see the hesitation in their eyes. They were all scared of what the warbeasts might do if they were awakened. But deep down, Bonner knew they couldn't afford to be cautious anymore. They had to gamble on the warbeasts. If Earth had any hope of surviving, it would come from those ancient giants. As the council continued to argue, Bonner's mind wandered back to his comrades, to the soldiers who had fought and died alongside him. He thought of his best friend, Captain Marcus Hale, who had fallen during the last Gezereth attack. Hale's sacrifice had been a heavy blow to Bonner, but it was one that fueled his determination to protect Earth, to avenge the countless lives lost. Emotional connection. Bonner's thoughts turned to the home he loved. Earth wasn't just a planet to him. It was his home, his family, his future. Every corner of it held memories of laughter, of peace, of quiet moments with those he had cared for. He thought of his younger sister, Maya, who was now trapped on one of the colonies under Xerath attack. He hadn't been able to reach her. The Xerath were relentless, and the odds of survival were growing slimmer by the day. Bonner felt his heartache, but also his resolve. He couldn't let the Xerath take Earth. He couldn't let his sister die. The Warbeasts were his only hope. They were more than just weapons. They were a piece of humanity's legacy, a legacy that had been forgotten, but was now their only chance to survive. Standing before the council, Bonner's voice softened, yet carried the weight of his emotions. We cannot let the Xerath destroy everything we've worked for. We cannot let them take our home, our people, our future. The Warbeasts are our only chance. I've seen what they can do. They can fight. They can win. But we need to act now. The room fell silent. For a moment, Bonner thought the council might reject his plea. But then, to his relief, one of the senior generals stood up. He's right. The general said, his voice grave. The Xerath will destroy us if we don't do something. Activate the Warbeasts. We don't have time to wait. The decision was made. Bonner would lead the charge. The Warbeasts would be awakened. As Bonner left the council room, he knew what he had to do. His heart ached, but his mind was clear. He would do whatever it took to protect Earth. He would bring the Warbeasts back to life, and he would lead them into battle. The fate of Earth, and of the galaxy, depended on it. The countdown had begun. The Warbeasts were waking up, and the Xerath would soon learn what it meant to face humanity's greatest weapon. Major Riley Bonner's heart raced as he and a team of soldiers descended into the depths of Earth's ancient facilities. The mission was clear: awaken the Warbeasts. But the path ahead was far from easy. These underground facilities were relics of a forgotten age, with defenses that had long been forgotten by humanity, hidden deep beneath the surface for centuries. Bonner's thoughts raced as he surveyed the dark, cold corridors. They were descending into the very heart of humanity's ancient weaponry, only to find out if these beasts could still fight, or if they were nothing more than a relic of a past era. The sound of their boots echoing on the steel floor was the only noise in the oppressive silence. Bonner's team was on high alert, every soldier tense, their fingers gripping their weapons. They had already encountered the first wave of defenses, automated security systems designed to protect the Warbeasts from being disturbed by intruders. The AI-driven traps and defensive mechanisms had been dormant for centuries. But now, they were waking up, and they weren't happy to see humans. The first defense came in the form of a massive door that slammed shut, trapping them in a small corridor. Bonner and his soldiers immediately sprang into action. The soldiers worked together, using their advanced equipment to break through the door. With a loud crash, it fell, revealing another stretch of dark hallway. But Bonner could see the flicker of lights in the distance. The AI systems were activating, and they wouldn't stop until every intruder was neutralized. "Stay sharp," Bonner called out, signaling his team to keep moving. The deeper they went, the more intense the traps became. A series of laser grids shot across the corridor, requiring the soldiers to weave through them, narrowly avoiding being cut in half. They encountered automated drones, programmed to shoot on sight. The soldiers fought back fiercely, using their cloaking devices and advanced weaponry to outsmart the defenses. Despite their best efforts, Bonner could feel the walls closing in. Time was running out. The Warbeasts had to be awakened, or humanity's last hope would be extinguished. The deeper they went, the more the facility seemed to fight back. It was as if the AI had a mind of its own, adapting to their every move, learning from their tactics. But Bonner's team pressed on. With each trap they overcame, they grew closer to their goal. Sweat dripped from their brows, but their determination never wavered. The Warbeasts were the only thing standing between Earth and total destruction. Finally, after what felt like an eternity of navigating through traps and AI defenses, Bonner and his soldiers arrived at the heart of the facility. There, hidden in a massive chamber, stood the Warbeasts, lined up like statues, silent and unmoving. The sight of them was overwhelming. Each warbeast was a colossal figure, towering over the humans like gods of war. Their biomechanical bodies were covered in ancient armor, intricately designed to protect the advanced technology within. Bonner's breath caught in his throat as he stepped closer to one of the warbeasts. This was it, the moment they had all been waiting for. "Are we ready?" Bonner asked, his voice steady but tinged with excitement. One of the soldiers, Lieutenant Sarah Carter, nodded. "We've got this, Major." Bonner's hand hovered over the activation switch. He glanced at his soldiers, knowing that once this was done, there was no turning back. They were about to awaken humanity's ancient war machines, machines that had not seen battle in millennia. What would they be like now? Would they still function as they once had? Or would the long years of dormancy leave them weakened and unresponsive? With a deep breath, Bonner activated the system. The warbeast stirred. It started with a faint hum, followed by a deep growl that shook the room. The lights flickered, and then, with a series of mechanical noises, the warbeasts began to move. Their massive bodies shifted, and their glowing eyes blinked on, casting an eerie light around the chamber. For a moment, Bonner felt a surge of awe and fear. The warbeasts were awakening, and with them, a force unlike anything humanity had ever known. As the warbeasts came fully online, Bonner's soldiers could feel the power radiating from them. The ground trembled beneath their feet as the beasts' massive limbs shifted and their weapons powered up. These were not just machines. They were living beings, linked to the pilots who would control them. But Bonner knew that while the warbeasts were powerful, they were also raw, untested, and still adapting to their new pilots. Would they be ready in time to face the Exareth? Or would humanity's enemies take advantage of their weakness? The first test came faster than Bonner had anticipated. From the distant horizon, a small alien force, Xareth scouts, launched an assault on Earth's new defenses. Their goal was clear: prevent the warbeasts from being fully activated. The Xareth knew that humanity's survival depended on these creatures, and if they could destroy them before they were ready, they could crush Earth's hopes once and for all. The warbeasts, still learning to adjust to their new pilots, stumbled forward, unsure of their movements. The Xareth forces came in fast, their cloaking devices making them invisible to normal sensors. The warbeasts fired their weapons, but their shots were erratic, some missing entirely while others hit their targets but with less power than anticipated. The Xareth retaliated, launching missiles and energy blasts from their advanced ships. Bonner's soldiers, in their own vehicles, joined the fray, launching counterattacks, but the real test was the warbeasts. In the chaos of the battle, Bonner's heart pounded as he saw the warbeasts begin to adapt. Their massive hands began to swipe at the Xareth ships with increasing precision. Their energy shields flared as they absorbed energy blasts, and the explosive weaponry mounted on their shoulders unleashed devastating firepower. The raw power of the warbeasts was undeniable. But despite the warbeasts' raw power, they were not yet in perfect sync with their new pilots. The Xareth exploited this, launching precise attacks that targeted the warbeasts' weak points. One of the warbeasts stumbled, its leg locking up as the pilot struggled to control it. For a moment, the creature fell to its knees, and Bonner's stomach dropped. But just as quickly, the warbeast rose again, shaking off the assault. The pilot had learned, and the warbeast retaliated with fury, smashing through the Xareth's cloaking shields and destroying the alien ships in a spectacular display of power. Despite the warbeast's strength, Bonner couldn't shake the nagging feeling that time was running out. The warbeasts had only just awakened, and the Xareth were relentless. Could Earth survive the onslaught, or would the warbeasts need more time to fully adjust? As the battle raged on, the suspense was palpable. The warbeasts had shown their potential, but their true power had yet to be fully realized. Would the Xareth strike before they could perfect their control over the warbeasts? Would humanity be able to defend itself against such a formidable foe? Only time would tell. But one thing was clear: The Warbeasts were no longer dormant. They were awake, and they were ready for war. The silence of space was shattered as the Xerath fleet arrived in full force, their massive warships appearing like shadows in the dark, blocking out the stars. The battle for Earth's survival had begun. As the alien ships descended toward the planet, the skies were filled with the terrifying hum of incoming fire. Orbital bombardments lit up the atmosphere, turning night into day. The world below trembled as humanity's last stand began. Major Riley Bonner stood at the front of the human forces, his eyes scanning the battlefield through the viewfinder of his helmet. The Xerath were relentless, their superior technology making them formidable opponents. But humanity had one thing that Xerath didn't: an ancient, forgotten weapon: the Warbeasts. The Warbeasts, now fully awake and battle-ready, led the charge. These massive biomechanical giants, each one a towering testament to human ingenuity and lost history, charged into the fray with unstoppable force. Their glowing eyes burned with the power of their advanced AI systems, and their weapons unleashed devastating blasts of energy that obliterated everything in their path. As Bonner and his soldiers fought alongside them, humanity's first true line of defense against the Xerath became clear. The Warbeasts were not just machines. They were living weapons, capable of incredible destruction. They tore through the Xerath battlecruisers with ease, their massive claws rending through the metal like paper. Laser fire lit up the sky as the Warbeasts unleashed their devastating energy beams, cutting through the alien ships with unrelenting force. The Xerath tried to fight back, but their weapons were no match for the power of the Warbeasts. Bonner's heart raced as he watched the chaos unfold. Every moment was a test. Would the Warbeasts be able to hold their ground? Could humanity stand up to the overwhelming might of the Xerath? The battle was intense, and the stakes were higher than ever. Humanity's future depended on their success. The ground shook as Warbeasts collided with Xerath battlecruisers, each blow sending shockwaves across the battlefield. Bonner's soldiers fought with everything they had, using their high-tech weapons and laser swords to push back the alien forces. Close-quarters combat ensued, the humans and Warbeasts creating a powerful vigil as they fought side by side. The air was thick with energy blasts, and the ground was littered with the wreckage of alien ships. The Warbeasts were unstoppable, their massive fists smashing through enemy lines. Their energy shields flared as they absorbed Xerath attacks, allowing the Warbeasts to keep fighting without pause. Bonner's soldiers, though outmatched in technology, fought with raw determination, using their advanced weapons to support the Warbeasts. Together, they were a formidable force. The Xerath, with their superior numbers and technology, seemed to falter in the face of this unexpected resistance. But the battle took a devastating turn. Sergeant Daniels, one of Bonner's closest friends, had been leading a team on a critical mission to disable a Xerath command ship. They had been moving through the ruins of an abandoned city, dodging alien fire, when tragedy struck. A well-placed Xerath energy blast hit their position, sending Daniels flying. Bonner's heart sank as he watched his friend go down, the sound of his armor cracking echoing in his ears. Bonner rushed to Daniels' side, but it was clear that his friend was beyond saving. Blood stained his uniform, and his breathing was shallow. Daniels looked up at Bonner, his face a mask of pain but determination. "I'll hold them off," Daniels said, his voice strained. "Finish it, for Earth." With those final words, Sergeant Daniels passed away, leaving Bonner to carry on the fight without him. The loss was felt deeply by everyone, but it was especially hard for Bonner. Daniels had been more than just a comrade. He had been a friend, someone who had fought by his side through thick and thin. Now he was gone. But Daniels' last words ignited something inside Bonner. He stood up, his fists clenched, and looked toward the battlefield. His grief fueled his determination. For Earth, he whispered to himself. He knew what he had to do. The Warbeasts had to win this battle, no matter the cost. Rallying his soldiers, Bonner led the charge once more. The death of his friend made the stakes personal, but it also gave him the strength to push through. The Warbeasts, sensing their pilot's fury, fought with renewed power. The Xerath forces, though powerful, could not stand against the sheer force of humanity's will. The alien ships began to retreat, one by one, their commanders realizing that they were facing an enemy unlike any they had ever encountered. As the battle raged on, the tide slowly turned in humanity's favor. The Xerath, who had once seemed invincible, were now on the defensive. The Warbeasts tore through their ranks, and Bonner's soldiers fought with everything they had. Each blow struck with precision, each shot fired with determination. Humanity's strength had come from its greatest weakness, its vulnerability. It was that very vulnerability that had made humans resilient, that had made them fight harder when everything seemed lost. The Warbeasts continued their rampage, obliterating the Xerath battlecruisers with their weapons and smashing through alien defenses. As the Xerath forces retreated, the humans pressed on, pushing them back into the darkness of space. For the first time in centuries, humanity had won a major victory. The Xerath were in retreat, and Earth had proven that it could stand against the might of the alien invaders. The Warbeasts had awakened just in time, and their power had been fully realized on the battlefield. But Bonner knew this was only the beginning. The Xerath were not done yet. They would regroup, rearm, and return. The Warbeasts had given humanity a fighting chance, but the war was far from over. Earth's survival still hung in the balance, and as Bonner looked up at the sky, the weight of the battle ahead settled on his shoulders. Humanity had won the first major battle, but the real fight was just beginning. The Warbeasts were awake, and Earth had a new hope. But would it be enough to defeat the Xerath once and for all? Only time would tell. After humanity's unexpected victory, the Xerath were not about to take their defeat lying down. In the cold, dark silence of space, a new weapon was being deployed, one far more devastating than anything the aliens had used before. The Xerath unleashed an eye-controlled warship, a colossal behemoth capable of annihilating entire planets with its deadly firepower. The warship's advanced technology and artificial intelligence made it nearly unstoppable. With the power to wipe out Earth in a single strike, it quickly became humanity's greatest threat. As the Xerath warship loomed closer, Bonner and his soldiers prepared for the battle of their lives. The Warbeasts, now fully awakened and integrated with their human pilots, were ready to face the new challenge. Humanity's hope rested on the Warbeasts' strength, but the odds were stacked against them. The Xerath's new weapon was unlike anything they had encountered before. Above Earth's atmosphere, the battle began. The Warbeasts, towering machines of destruction, soared into the sky with incredible speed. Their powerful engines hummed as they cloaked themselves, disappearing into the void of space. The Warbeasts reappeared behind the Xerath warship, launching surprise attacks with blinding lasers that crackled through the dark expanse. The Xerath were quick to retaliate, their warship firing back with devastating force. Blazing lasers filled the sky, lighting up the darkness with explosions that rocked the very fabric of space. In the midst of the chaos, Bonner and his team fought with everything they had. The Warbeasts dodged and weaved through enemy fire, performing high-speed evasions that left the Xerath warship struggling to keep up. Each Warbeast moved like a living organism, its human pilot guiding it with precision. With every evasive maneuver, the Warbeasts reappeared behind the Xerath forces, unleashing devastating surprise attacks that caused the enemy to falter. The battle was intense. Explosions erupted all around as the Warbeasts engaged the Xerath in a furious dogfight. Lasers streaked across the dark sky, colliding with shields, while energy beams cut through enemy ships. The Warbeasts fought with relentless fury, their powerful weapons tearing through the Xerath defenses. Every move was calculated, every attack strategic. It was a battle of wits and technology, with humanity's future hanging in the balance. But the Xerath were not without their own tricks. The eye-controlled warship was a formidable opponent, capable of predicting and countering the Warbeasts' every move. Despite their best efforts, Bonner and his team began to feel the pressure. The Warbeasts were powerful, but they were also vulnerable. The HFY warship's energy cannons hit their targets with unerring accuracy, causing massive damage to the Warbeasts and their human pilots. Bonner's team took heavy losses. The once powerful Warbeasts, which had seemed invincible in their first victory, were now on the back foot. One by one, the Warbeasts were damaged, their shields failing under the constant barrage of enemy fire. The skies were filled with debris, the remains of fallen Warbeasts drifting in space like broken giants. Bonner watched in horror as his comrades' machines were torn apart, their pilots falling to the HFY's overwhelming might. Then, disaster struck. Bonner's Warbeast was hit by a direct blast from the HFY warship's main cannon. The impact sent Bonner's machine spiraling out of control, sending him plummeting toward the Earth's atmosphere. The world blurred around him as alarms blared, and Bonner's vision went black. When he regained consciousness, the situation had become even more dire. His Warbeast was severely damaged, and he was barely able to hold on to the controls. His suit's life support system was failing, and his communication system was down. Bonner was stranded, deep in enemy territory, with no way to escape. But Bonner was not one to give up easily. Despite the pain and the damage to his Warbeast, he refused to surrender. He fought through the dizziness, the blood seeping from his wounds, and the broken systems in his machine. He could feel the weight of the battle pressing down on him, but he knew one thing for certain. He couldn't let humanity lose now. Not after all they had fought for. The Warbeast lurched forward, its cloaking system flickering back to life. Bonner, despite his injuries, guided his machine toward the HFY warship. The eye-controlled vessel was far larger and more powerful, but Bonner's Warbeast was faster, more agile, and more unpredictable. He dodged incoming fire, each evasion a desperate attempt to keep his machine intact. As he approached the HFY warship, Bonner activated his Warbeast's most powerful weapon. The energy cannon charged, glowing with an intensity that could blind even the most advanced of sensors. Bonner aimed carefully, his hands shaking from the pain, but his determination burning brighter than ever. He released the shot. The blast hit the HFY warship square in its weak spot, sending a shockwave through space. The warship's shields flickered before failing completely, and the massive vessel began to break apart. The HFY, unable to recover, fell into chaos. The rest of the Warbeasts took this moment of vulnerability and launched their final assault. Together, they unleashed a barrage of firepower, tearing the HFY warship apart piece by piece. But the battle came at a heavy cost. Bonner's Warbeast was critically damaged, and Bonner himself was on the brink of collapse. He could barely breathe, and his strength was nearly gone. But as he watched the HFY warship disintegrate, he felt a surge of triumph. The impossible had been done. Humanity had won. But as the dust settled, the true cost of the victory began to sink in. Bonner's team had suffered tremendous losses, and many soldiers were now lost in space, their Warbeasts destroyed. The HFY had been defeated, but humanity had paid a high price. Bonner was left with a feeling of emptiness. The war was not yet over, and while this battle had been won, there was still a long road ahead. The HFY may have been repelled for now, but Bonner knew they would return. This fight was far from over, and Earth's survival, once again, hung in the balance. But for now, humanity had gained a fleeting victory, and Bonner, though broken, stood ready to continue the fight. The battle had raged on for what felt like an eternity. Earth's Warbeasts, despite their heavy losses and damaged frames, had one final chance to turn the tide. This was humanity's last stand. If they failed now, there would be no Earth left to fight for. Bonner, bloodied and bruised, stood at the heart of the human force, leading the charge. The eye-controlled warship, the HFY's most powerful weapon, loomed ominously in the sky, its energy shields rippling like a force field, an intimidating fortress of alien technology. But this time, humanity's Warbeasts were ready for battle in ways they had never been before. The Warbeasts, once alien and intimidating machines, had finally cinched with their human pilots. The AI systems that powered them no longer acted solely on cold logic. They now responded to the human emotions, instincts, and thoughts of their pilots. The bond between the Warbeasts and their human controllers was no longer just technological. It was deeply personal. The Warbeasts moved as extensions of their pilots, fluid and responsive, their artificial intelligence blending seamlessly with human emotions. With every heartbeat, every rush of adrenaline, the Warbeasts grew more attuned to their pilots' needs, their actions becoming more synchronized and intuitive. This newfound bond gave the Warbeasts unprecedented power. Bonner's Warbeast, battered but still alive, roared to life as its systems adjusted, bringing it back online just in time for the final offensive. The soldiers in their respective Warbeasts felt the surge of energy, a final rush of hope, flowing through their machines. They were no longer just fighting for survival. They were fighting for each other, for Earth, for everything they had left. The Warbeasts took to the skies with a ferocity that surprised even their pilots. They were faster, stronger, and more deadly than ever before, their laser cannons blazing with unrelenting firepower. The battle between humanity and the Xerath had escalated into a destructive spectacle of unimaginable proportions. The sky above Earth was a tapestry of explosions and fire, lit by the constant barrage of weapons from both sides. The Warbeasts were unstoppable forces of nature, smashing through the Xerath's lines with brutal, unrelenting power. The ground shook as their heavy footsteps reverberated through the battlefields below. Every move was calculated, every attack deliberate. Humanity's forces, though outnumbered, fought with a tenacity born of desperation and a deep-rooted will to survive. As the Warbeasts advanced, the Xerath responded with even greater force, their eye-controlled warship firing relentlessly at the advancing machines. Explosions rocked the air as the Warbeasts weaved through the barrage of energy blasts, using their cloaking devices to disappear and reappear in an instant. The Warbeasts' advanced weaponry collided with the Xerath warship's defenses, creating massive shockwaves that sent ripples through the atmosphere. The battle seemed to reach its peak, with both sides locked in an endless struggle for dominance. But Bonner knew this was their final chance. He couldn't afford to hesitate. He pushed his Warbeast to its limits, knowing that every move counted. His Warbeast's energy cannons charged, glowing with deadly intensity. Bonner's heart raced as he locked onto the Xerath warship, the final enemy standing between humanity and total annihilation. He could see the warship's shields flickering as they absorbed the incoming fire from the Warbeasts, but it was weakening. The Xerath warship's power was beginning to fade, and Bonner knew this was his moment. He pushed the controls forward, directing his Warbeast into a desperate final charge. He could feel the weight of the battle, the weight of his fallen comrades, pushing him forward. His mind raced with memories of his team, of the friends he had lost. He thought of the sacrifices they had made, the comrades who had fought beside him and fallen. They couldn't have died in vain. Not now. Not when victory was within reach. As Bonner closed the distance between himself and the Xerath warship, he could feel his Warbeast's power surge. The AI systems hummed with energy, responding to his every command. His heart pounded as he reached the critical moment. With a final, resounding roar, Bonner released the full force of his Warbeast's energy cannon, sending a concentrated blast of raw power toward the Xerath warship. The explosion was blinding, lighting up the sky like a second sun. The Xerath warship's shields disintegrated in an instant, and the warship itself shattered, torn apart by the sheer force of the blast. The massive vessel began to break apart, its pieces floating in space like debris from a shattered dream. The remaining Xerath forces, seeing their greatest weapon fall, faltered. Their morale shattered, and they began to retreat. The once feared Xerath dominion, which had ruled with an iron fist, was crumbling. The Warbeasts, guided by their human pilots, swept through the remaining Xerath forces, cutting them down with precision and overwhelming power. It was a final triumphant push that ended the war and secured humanity's place in the galaxy. But as the battle came to a close, Bonner couldn't help but feel the weight of the victory. The destruction around him was immense, and the cost of the war had been high. He had lost so many friends along the way, and even though they had won, it didn't feel like a true victory. The skies above Earth were quiet now, but the memory of the destruction would haunt him forever. Bonner gazed at the stars, reflecting on the journey that had brought them here. Humanity had been considered weak, insignificant, a race unworthy of notice by the galactic powers. But now, Earth stood as the new superpower, a beacon of resilience and strength in the vastness of space. The Xerath, once rulers of the galaxy, had been defeated. Their empire was no more. Humanity, through its courage, determination, and the bond between man and machine, had emerged victorious. As Bonner stood there, surrounded by the remnants of battle, he couldn't help but think of the fallen. He thought of Sergeant Daniels, his closest friend, who had died in the early days of the war. He thought of the countless soldiers who had fought and died to protect Earth. Their sacrifice had made this victory possible. But even as he mourned their loss, Bonner knew they had achieved something incredible. They had fought against the odds, against an overwhelming enemy, and they had won. The war was over, but the future was still uncertain. Earth had become a powerful force in the galaxy, but there were still challenges ahead. The Xerath might be gone, but there were other threats out there, lurking in the darkness of space. Bonner knew that humanity's fight for survival would never truly end. But for now, Earth had emerged from the ashes, stronger than ever before. In the end, Bonner's reflection on the cost of war was bittersweet. The price had been high, but humanity had proven that they were not to be underestimated. They had become a force to be reckoned with, and as the final remnants of the Xerath Dominion disappeared into the void, Bonner couldn't help but feel a glimmer of hope for the future. Humanity had stood tall, and now they were ready to face whatever came next.